Welcome back to Relationship Psychology. Today we're diving into a topic that makes many men uncomfortable, but it's the reality that changes everything about how women perceive you. We're going to talk about how her feelings shift when you choose peace instead of pursuit. Before you roll your eyes, let me explain what I mean. Most men are taught that if you love a woman, you have to chase her relentlessly, text her, call her, show up, prove yourself over and over. But here's the problem. Constant pursuit doesn't make her want you more. Often, it does the exact opposite. In my years as a therapist, I've seen this pattern play out again and again. Men come in frustrated, wondering why the woman they've made the center of their life suddenly feels distant. And here's the pattern they don't see. When a man chooses peace, when he stops the endless chase and focuses on his own life, his own calm, something almost magical happens. I've watched women start noticing him in ways they never did before. Not because he's manipulative or playing games, but because he's no longer desperate. He stands in peace, not need. This is controversial because it goes against almost everything dating advice tells men. Fight for her attention, never let her see you pull back. Yet time and time again, the shift I observe in women happens when men step back, not when they push forward. It's not about ignoring her. It's about choosing your own stability over the frantic chase. By the end of this video, you'll understand why peace has power, why pursuit often destroys attraction, and how simply stepping into your own calm can completely change the way she sees you. So if you're ready to stop the exhausting chase and make her genuinely drawn to your presence, stay with me. Section 1. The cost of pursuit. Let's start with something almost every man experiences but rarely admits. The exhausting cycle of chasing a woman. Many men believe that if they pursue, text, call, or go all out to prove themselves, she'll eventually give in, appreciate them, or fall in love. The truth, from years of working with men and observing relationships, is that pursuit often does the opposite. It creates pressure, urgency, and even unconscious resentment. Pursuit doesn't just affect how she feels about you, it affects how you feel about yourself. You start tying your self-worth to her responses. Suddenly, your calm, your peace, your confidence all become conditional on her attention. I've had countless sessions with men who arrive exhausted, frustrated, and confused. One man told me, "It feels like the harder I try, the more distant she gets." That's not unusual. Pursuit often triggers the part of her brain wired for safety and caution. When she senses need, it activates signals that this dynamic might be unstable. Attraction doesn't grow in a vacuum of pressure. It grows when there's balance, curiosity, and the feeling that a man has his life together. The more you chase, the more you unintentionally communicate that your emotional state depends on her replies, and that quietly lowers attraction. Another angle to consider is the emotional cost. Men spend energy, time, and mental space constantly trying to earn her approval. Over time, that creates stress and often frustration. He overanalyzes every message, every pause, every reaction, trying to decode what it means for his value in her eyes. Meanwhile, she might not even be aware of the chase the same way you experience it. She simply feels a subtle tension, a constant pressure she can't name. And here's the key. Tension kills the relaxed, magnetic energy that naturally draws someone in. From a therapist's perspective, pursuit also erodes your ability to be fully present with yourself. When your attention is always fixed on her responses, you're not investing in your own growth, your own calm, or your own happiness. That's why so many men who take a step back, even slightly, notice something surprising. She starts noticing them differently, not because they fundamentally changed who they are, but because they stopped communicating need. The absence of pursuit creates space where attraction can breathe. Pursuit might feel productive, but it often comes at a high cost. Your peace, your dignity, and ultimately the very attraction you hope to cultivate. Recognizing this is the first step to changing the dynamic, stepping into calm and watching her feelings transform. Choosing peace isn't passive. It's an active, powerful decision. Section 2. Choosing your own peace. Now that we've seen the cost of pursuit, let's talk about the real game changer. Choosing your own peace. This isn't just about stopping the chase. It's about creating a life where your emotional state isn't tied to her responses. When a man truly values his own peace, something subtle but powerful begins to happen in how a woman perceives him. She senses stability, self-respect, confidence. qualities that can't be faked or forced. From my experience as a therapist, I've seen countless men arrive in sessions drained from trying to control outcomes or force interest. Then, when they start prioritizing their own calm, the transformation is almost immediate. One man I worked with described it this way: "When I stopped checking my phone every hour or trying to guess her mood, I felt lighter, and suddenly she started reaching out more naturally." That's not coincidence. Peace communicates security. Need communicates instability. Women, consciously or not, respond to that energy. Choosing your own peace also teaches men about boundaries, self-respect, and the kind of presence that naturally attracts. Peace isn't passive, it's active self-leadership. It's having your own life, hobbies, ambitions, and social connections, and letting her know through your calm behavior that you're complete with or without her attention. When a man cultivates this, she no longer feels the pressure to entertain him or meet some invisible quota of engagement. She feels drawn instead. Another important lesson here is patience. Many men think peace means ignoring or emotionally detaching, but it's deeper than that. Peace is an internal state. It's the ability to respond instead of react, to listen without panicking about the next message, to be available without losing yourself. I've seen men transform relationships simply by choosing moments of calm over impulsive pursuit. This doesn't mean neglect. It means showing up as someone who isn't desperate for approval, who isn't willing to compromise his own balance for fleeting attention. Here's the controversial part. Men often fear that stepping back will make her lose interest completely. In reality, the opposite happens. When you stop chasing and start choosing peace, her mind begins to engage in ways it didn't before. Curiosity awakens. Subtle attraction grows. She notices your confidence and calm, qualities that are magnetic precisely because they're rare in a world where most men push, prove, and constantly seek validation. Choosing peace isn't a trick. It's not a game. It's not about making her chase you. It's about reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. It's about presenting as a man who isn't defined by someone else's attention, but by his own centering. And when you do that, her feelings begin to shift naturally. Section 3. How calm sparks curiosity. Now let's talk about something fascinating and often overlooked. How calm, when practiced intentionally, ignites curiosity in her mind. Most men underestimate the power of presence. They think excitement comes from constant action, pursuit, or emotional expression. But in reality, calm is magnetic. It creates space that invites her to notice things she might otherwise overlook. I've seen this play out countless times with men who decide to step back and stop reacting to every message or mood swing. Suddenly, she starts asking questions she never asked before. Why isn't he texting like usual? Why does he seem so calm? From a therapist's perspective, curiosity is one of the most powerful drivers of emotional attraction. When a woman senses a man is centered, not driven by need, her brain begins to engage subtly. It starts analyzing, exploring, paying attention. I remember working with one man who used to check his phone constantly, reply instantly, and over-explain everything. She was slowly losing interest. But when he consciously created calm, focusing on his life, his hobbies, his friendships, she started reaching out first. She wasn't forced. She was curious. She wanted to understand why his energy had shifted, why he no longer seemed as available in the same way. That curiosity is powerful because it's authentic. It's her brain trying to understand a man who's neither predictable nor demanding. The most interesting part is how this calm communicates value without words. You don't need to brag or show off. You simply exist in a state of self-possession. Calm men send an unconscious signal. I'm stable. I control my life. I'm not defined by your attention. Women pick it up immediately, even if they're not consciously aware of it. The effect is that they start seeing you differently, not as someone who needs her validation, but as someone intriguing, secure, and rare. Calm also allows you to respond instead of react. When a man is anchored, he doesn't panic over late messages or small disagreements. Giving space gives her room to reflect on her own feelings. I've often seen women soften, move closer, or express interest simply because the man isn't chasing, hounding, or reacting emotionally. His stillness creates a mirror effect. She starts examining her own desires and emotions in a way she wouldn't have if she were constantly being pursued. Here's the subtle but crucial point. Curiosity fueled by calm isn't manipulation. It's not about creating games or tactics. It's about aligning your emotional energy with self-respect. By cultivating your own peace, you naturally become someone she wants to know more about, someone who stands out from the crowd of men who chase endlessly and lose themselves in the process. Calm is magnetic because it's authentic, and authenticity is unforgettable. Section 4. Why absence fuels attraction. Let's dive into a principle that shocks many men at first but is undeniable. Absence fuels attraction. It's counterintuitive for most men because we're taught that constantly showing up, being available, and proving yourself wins love. But in reality, too much presence can create comfort, familiarity, and even unintentional disinterest. I remember working with a man in a long-term relationship who came to me frustrated. He was always the first to call, plan dates, check in. He thought that would keep her close, but instead, she started emotionally pulling away. When we explored what was happening, it became clear that his constant presence had unintentionally removed space for curiosity, desire, and emotional engagement. She knew he'd always be there, and that security, while seeming positive, reduced the tension that keeps attraction alive. I suggested he start creating small, meaningful absences, not as punishment, but as a way to cultivate his own life and energy. At first, he feared pulling back would make her resentful or feel neglected. What happened next was fascinating. Within weeks, she started contacting him more, initiating conversations, showing renewed interest. His absence had stimulated her emotional engagement. Here's the psychological reason behind it. When a man steps back and maintains his calm, he allows her mind and emotions to fill the space. She starts noticing little things she may have taken for granted. His way of listening, his subtle humor, the stability he provides. Absence doesn't mean ignoring her or withdrawing love. It means giving her the chance to miss your presence, to reflect on what she really feels when you're not immediately available. That creates desire, curiosity, and deeper emotional connection than endless pursuit ever could. It's also important to emphasize that absence works best when paired with consistency in your own life. The man I worked with didn't disappear completely. He simply invested in his hobbies, friendships, and career, showing that his worth and peace didn't depend on her. That balance is essential, because absence without presence elsewhere can feel like withdrawal or disinterest. When done right, it communicates that you're emotionally centered, independent, and not defined by her attention. All qualities that naturally heighten attraction. The lesson is clear. Constant presence can feel like showing care. But ironically, it often reduces her emotional engagement. Creating space, stepping back thoughtfully, and prioritizing your own life allows her feelings to shift naturally. She starts noticing, appreciating, and desiring your presence in a way constant pursuit never could. In relationships, absence, when combined with peace and self-respect, isn't a threat. It's a magnet. Section 5. Her subtle emotional shift. At this point, you might be wondering exactly how a woman's feelings change when you stop chasing and step into peace. This is where the subtle emotional shift happens, and it's fascinating to observe. I remember working with a couple where the man had spent months constantly trying to prove his worth, sending messages multiple times a day, planning elaborate dates, always responding immediately to her needs. She was polite and affectionate at times, but over time her interest seemed to fade. She wasn't openly rude or distant, but there was a silent disengagement he couldn't understand. When we worked together, I encouraged him to take conscious, calm steps back, not as punishment, but as a way to reclaim his own peace. He began focusing on his hobbies, maintaining his routines, and responding rather than reacting. Within a few weeks, he noticed changes in her behavior. It started small. She asked about his day, initiated casual conversations, even invited him to spend time together without him having to prompt her. These were subtle signs, but powerful indicators of a shift in her emotional landscape. What I've learned as a therapist is that women respond emotionally in layers. When a man pursues relentlessly, her brain gets used to his energy and can take it for granted. There's no room for reflection or desire. But when a man steps into peace, even slightly, her brain begins to notice contrasts, the calm, the stability, the fact that he's not emotionally dependent on her approval. That triggers curiosity, engagement, and emotional presence. Suddenly, she pays attention in ways she didn't before, often without consciously realizing it. It's important to understand that this shift is rarely dramatic. It's not fireworks or sudden confessions. It's small, quiet signals, a smile that lingers longer, playful teasing, a message sent without prompt. One client once described it this way: "It feels like she's rediscovering me." That's exactly what happens. When you stop chasing her, you stop overwhelming her emotional space, and she begins exploring her feelings freely. This subtle emotional shift is also tied to respect. When a man holds his boundaries and chooses his own peace, he communicates self-worth. Women respond instinctively. She sees a man who is stable, reliable, and emotionally independent. And that combination is deeply attractive. She may start thinking about him more, noticing little things she likes, even missing his presence when he's not around. The main takeaway is that the shift doesn't require manipulation or games. It happens naturally when a man prioritizes his peace and allows space for attraction to grow. By stepping back and focusing on yourself, you give her the opportunity to reconnect emotionally in a way constant pursuit never could, and that's when her feelings truly begin to change. Section 6. The boundaries that changed the game. Let's talk about boundaries and why they aren't just a relationship concept. They change the game when it comes to attraction. Many men think boundaries are restrictive, that they push women away. The truth is exactly the opposite. Boundaries, when set with clarity and calm, create respect, curiosity, and desire. I've seen this play out countless times in practice. Men who learn to protect their time, energy, and emotional stability suddenly notice women responding differently, more engaged, more attentive, more emotionally present. I remember one client who was constantly available for his partner. He canceled plans, replied instantly to messages, and always prioritized her schedule over his own. He thought that made him reliable and caring. Instead, she became indifferent. She got comfortable knowing he'd always be there, and attraction began to fade. When we explored the concept of boundaries, he was hesitant. He feared being firm or stepping back would push her away. But when he started implementing small, consistent boundaries, not replying instantly to every message, keeping weekends for his hobbies, saying no when something didn't align with his priorities, her behavior changed dramatically. She started noticing him more, initiating contact, showing appreciation he'd never seen before. Boundaries work because they communicate value. They show you're not willing to sacrifice your peace or identity for approval. When a man stands in his own space, he sends a powerful, silent message. I'm complete. I have my life. My presence is meaningful. Women often notice this without consciously realizing it. It's not about being cold or distant. It's about being anchored. Another reason boundaries change the game is that they create emotional tension, the kind that sparks attraction. When a woman sees a man has priorities, standards, and boundaries, she starts valuing the moments she spends with him more. Every interaction carries weight. That's what I often explain to men in therapy. Availability isn't inherently attractive. In fact, endless availability can erode desire. Controlled presence combined with consistency and peace has far greater impact. Boundaries also bring you clarity. When you know what you'll accept and what you won't, you stop reacting impulsively to drama or emotional fluctuations. You escape the trap of seeking validation and enter space where your actions are intentional. This stability reassures her emotionally while drawing her in psychologically. She's not forced to chase you. She wants to engage with someone who is calm, centered, and self-respecting. In short, boundaries aren't walls. They're the framework for respect, attraction, and healthy emotional dynamics. Choosing peace and protecting your energy doesn't push her away. It opens the door for her to see you as rare, grounded, and undeniably magnetic. Conclusion: when you choose peace instead of pursuit, everything changes, not by force, but naturally. By stepping back, protecting your energy, and consistently valuing yourself, you create space for her feelings to evolve. She starts noticing you, questioning herself, and engaging in ways endless pursuit never could inspire. Calm, boundaries, and self-respect aren't just strategies. They're ways of showing up as a complete man. Attraction grows, curiosity awakens, connection deepens. Remember, the power isn't in pursuit, it's in presence, your own.